Before we begin, I want to make something absolutely clear. This content is created purely for educational and entertainment purposes. The concepts we'll explore today draw from mythology, Jungian psychology, and personal development frameworks. This is not medical advice, psychological counseling, or a replacement for professional mental health support. The ideas presented here are meant to inspire self-reflection and personal growth, not to create division or suggest superiority over others. Now, let's explore something profound. Have you ever felt like the world is watching you? Not in a paranoid way, but in a way that feels almost cosmic, as if your very existence sends ripples through reality that others can somehow sense? There's this peculiar phenomenon that happens to certain individuals, a recognition that goes beyond the social mask we all wear. It's as though the universe itself has marked you, and people around you, whether consciously or unconsciously, can feel that mark. They can't always explain it. They can't always articulate why you make them uncomfortable, inspired, threatened, or strangely hopeful. But they feel it. And right now, in this moment, the world is talking about you. This isn't about ego. This isn't about being better than anyone else. What we're exploring today is an ancient archetype that appears in every culture, every mythology, every spiritual tradition throughout human history. Carl Jung called these archetypes the collective unconscious, patterns of human experience that transcend individual lives and connect us to something far larger than ourselves. The hero's journey, the wounded healer, the sage, the chosen one. These aren't just stories. They're psychological maps, blueprints of transformation that certain individuals are called to walk. And if you're watching this, there's a strong possibility you're one of them. Let's start with something uncomfortable. From your earliest memories, you probably felt different. Not special in the way society celebrates specialness, but different in a way that often felt isolating, confusing, even painful. While other children seemed to naturally fit into social hierarchies and unspoken rules, you were observing, questioning, feeling things more intensely. You might have been called too sensitive, too serious, too questioning. Teachers didn't know what to do with you. You either excelled beyond expectation or struggled because the system wasn't designed for the way your mind works. Your family might have recognized something unique in you, or they might have tried to normalize you, to make you fit into conventional molds that felt suffocating. This early sense of difference isn't random. In mythology, the chosen one is almost always marked by unusual circumstances from birth. Moses was placed in a basket and sent down the river. King Arthur was hidden away and raised not knowing his true lineage. Luke Skywalker grew up on a desert planet far from the action. Buddha was sheltered in a palace, protected from the suffering of the world. The pattern repeats because it reflects a psychological truth. Those who are meant to transform consciousness must first experience separation from the ordinary flow of life. They must develop the capacity to see what others cannot see, to question what others accept without thinking. But here's where it gets interesting. The world has always been talking about people like you, just not in the way you might think. Throughout history, societies have had a complicated relationship with individuals who carry this particular energy. They're drawn to you and threatened by you simultaneously. You activate something in people. Some feel inspired in your presence, as though your very existence gives them permission to dream bigger, to question more deeply, to live more authentically. Others feel deeply uncomfortable, even hostile, though they can rarely explain why. You haven't done anything to them, yet your presence alone seems to trigger something primal in their psyche. This is because consciousness itself is contagious. When someone operates at a higher frequency of awareness, when someone refuses to participate in collective illusions, when someone embodies authentic truth rather than social performance, it creates a mirror effect. People see themselves reflected in that mirror, and what they see either inspires them to grow or terrifies them into defending their current level of consciousness. You become a walking reminder of unlived potential, of roads not taken, of authentic selves buried under layers of conditioning and compromise. Some people will love you for this reminder. Others will hate you for it. Most will feel both simultaneously and not understand why. The ancient Greeks had a word for this, a concept that our modern language struggles to capture. They called it demon, not demon in the Christian sense, but divine force that guides certain individuals toward their destiny. Socrates spoke of his demon, an inner voice that directed him toward truth, even when that truth made him unpopular. Even when it ultimately led to his execution, he could not follow it. The demon wasn't a choice. It was a compulsion toward authenticity and truth that superseded social acceptance, safety, or comfort. If you carry this energy, you understand this compulsion intimately. You've tried to dim your light, to fit in, to be normal, to stop asking uncomfortable questions or seeing uncomfortable truths. It doesn't work. The demon won't allow it. Now let's address the solitude, because this is perhaps the most challenging aspect of this path. The loneliness isn't just about being physically alone, although that happens too. It's a deeper existential solitude, a sense of being fundamentally misunderstood at your core. You can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone because the conversations remain surface level, because people don't want to go to the depths where you naturally exist. Small talk feels excruciating. Social performances feel exhausting. You watch people playing roles, following scripts, living on autopilot, and you can see it all so clearly that it's almost painful. You don't judge them for it, at least not from a place of superiority, but rather from a place of genuine confusion. How do they not see what you see? How are they content with surfaces when such profound depths exist? This solitude serves a purpose in the archetypal journey. In every hero's tale, there's a period in the wilderness, a time of isolation where the hero must develop inner resources, where external validation becomes impossible and internal truth becomes the only compass. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree. Muhammad retreated to the cave. Modern psychology understands this as the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a fully integrated self rather than a collection of social conditioning and external expectations. You can't individuate in a crowd. You can't discover your authentic self while constantly performing for others. The solitude, as painful as it is actually the crucible of transformation. But the world doesn't stop talking about you during this period of isolation. In fact, the talk intensifies. When you withdraw to do your inner work, people create narratives about your absence. They project their own fears and fantasies onto you. Some will say you think you're too good for them. Others will create elaborate stories about what you're doing, where you are, who you've become. The more you retreat into authenticity, the more mythology builds around you in the external world. This is the paradox of the chosen path. The more you detach from social validation, the more people become fascinated with you. The less you perform, the more compelling you become. The more you embrace solitude, the more your presence is felt even in your absence. Then comes a trial by fire, and this is where many people on this path lose their way or lose their minds if they're not careful. The trials aren't metaphorical. They're devastatingly real. Loss that breaks you open. Betrayal by those you trusted most. Failure that destroys your ego's carefully constructed identity. Illness that forces you to confront mortality. Psychological dark nights where meaning itself seems to dissolve. These aren't punishments. They're initiations. Every mystical tradition understands this. You cannot enter the temple of higher consciousness with your old self intact. Something must die so something new can be born. The caterpillar must dissolve completely in the chrysalis before the butterfly can emerge. There's no way around this process, only through it. What makes these trials even more challenging is that they often appear unjust. You see people who lie, cheat, and manipulate seemingly prospering while you try to live with integrity, face obstacle after obstacle. This can create a crisis of faith, a moment where you question whether truth, authenticity, and integrity actually matter in a world that seems to reward the opposite. But here's what the trials are actually testing. They're not testing your ability to succeed by conventional standards. They're testing your commitment to truth regardless of outcome. They're burning away any remaining attachment to external validation. They're destroying every false foundation you've built your identity upon, so that you can discover what remains when everything else is stripped away. What remains is your essence, your truth, your authentic power that no external circumstance can touch. During these trials, the world's conversation about you reaches a fever pitch, but now it takes on a different tone. People who once admired you may distance themselves because your suffering makes them uncomfortable, because it challenges their belief in a just world. because watching you struggle threatens their own sense of security. Others will use your trials as evidence that you were never special to begin with, that your different way of being wasn't enlightenment but delusion. Still others, the ones who carry similar energy, will watch your journey to the fire with recognition and hope, seeing in your trials a reflection of their own path, drawing strength from your refusal to give up even when giving up will be so much easier. This is where the concept of the wounded healer emerges, another archetype that intersects with the chosen one narrative. The healer who has never been wounded cannot truly heal others. They can offer techniques, strategies, information, but they cannot offer genuine transformation because they haven't been transformed themselves. Your trials, your wounds, your time in the darkness, these aren't deviations from your path. They are your path. They're how you develop the medicine that others will eventually need. Every shamanic tradition understands this. The shaman is chosen through crisis, through an encounter with death or madness, through a journey to the underworld and back. They return with gifts, with sight, with power, but only because they were willing to be completely destroyed and reconstructed. Now let's talk about justice, because if you're on this path, you have an almost painful relationship with justice. You can't stand to see injustice. You can't turn away from suffering. You can't pretend not to see when you see clearly. This isn't self-righteousness, though others may accuse you of that. It's a genuine inability to participate in collective denial. When systems are corrupt, you can't unsee the corruption. When people are being harmed, you can't unfeel their pain. When truth is being distorted, you can't unhear the lies. This makes you dangerous to systems that rely on comfortable ignorance, to power structures that depend on collective compliance, to social orders that require mass conformity. The world talks about people like you in coded language. Troublemaker, disruptor, too much, too intense, not a team player, difficult. These labels are attempts to neutralize your energy, to make you doubt yourself, to convince you that the problem is you rather than the systems you're refusing to uphold. But every prophet was called crazy. Every revolutionary was called dangerous. Every truth teller was told to sit down and be quiet. The fact that speaking truth makes people uncomfortable doesn't mean you should stop speaking truth. It means the truth is working, penetrating through layers of comfortable delusion, activating something that was dormant, forcing confrontation with what was being avoided. But here's the crucial understanding that mature, chosen ones eventually reach. Justice isn't about punishment or revenge. It's not about proving you were right and they were wrong. It's not about waiting for karma to destroy your enemies or vindicate your suffering. Real justice, cosmic justice, is about alignment with truth. It's about natural consequences flowing from natural laws. When you live in alignment with truth, reality supports you in ways that transcend conventional success or failure. When you live in misalignment, reality itself becomes your opposition. You don't need to fight your battles. You need to stay in your truth and let reality handle the rest. This is what every wisdom tradition teaches. This is what the mystics understood. This is what the chosen path ultimately reveals. As you mature on this journey, something profound shifts. The world's conversation about you changes again, or more accurately, your relationship to the world's conversation changes completely. You stop needing to be understood. You stop defending yourself against misinterpretation. You stop trying to control the narrative others create about you. This isn't resignation or defeat. It's liberation. You realize that the world was never talking about the real you anyway. They were talking about their projection, their interpretation, their filtered perception shaped by their own consciousness level. The real you exists beyond all conversations, beyond all judgments, beyond all narratives. The real you is vast, indefinable, connected to something infinite. This is when your true work begins. Everything before was preparation. The difference, the solitude, the trials, the injustice. These were all necessary stages of development. Now you understand why you're here. Not to be special, not to be worshipped, not to be recognized or validated, but to serve. To be a bridge between what is and what's possible. To hold a frequency that helps others remember their own truth. To walk a path that shows others the path is walkable. To survive the fire so others know the fire is survivable. Your very existence becomes an invitation for others to step into their own becoming. The conversation the world has about you now is less important than the conversation you inspire others to have with themselves. When people encounter you, something shifts in them. Sometimes it's immediate and dramatic. More often it's subtle, a seed planted that won't germinate until months or years later. They'll remember something you said, something you did, something you embodied. It will arrive exactly when they need it. This is the true power of the chosen path. Not power over others, but power to activate what's already within others, to remind them what they already know but have forgotten, to reflect back to them their own unlived potential. You're reading this right now because you recognize yourself in these words. You felt all of this, but perhaps couldn't articulate it. You've experienced the peculiar burden of carrying energy that both attracts and repels. You've walked through your own fire and wondered if you'd survive, if it was worth it, if anyone would ever understand. Here's what I want you to know. You did survive. It was worth it. And understanding from others, while nice, is no longer necessary because you finally understand yourself. You've met yourself in the depths. You discover what remains when everything else burns away. You found your truth, your essence, your unshakable core. The world will keep talking. Let it talk. Some conversations will elevate you to mythical status, seeing you as savior or guru or enlightened being. Reject this. You're human, beautifully and messily human. Other conversations will attempt to diminish you, to reduce your complexity to digestible narratives that make people feel safe. Ignore this. You're far too vast to be contained by anyone's limited perception. The truth is, you're both ordinary and extraordinary simultaneously. You're an individual human having a specific experience, and you're also expression of something universal, a particular note in an infinite cosmic symphony, a unique manifestation of consciousness exploring itself. Your mission, should you choose to continue accepting it, is simply this. Stay true. Keep walking your path even when it's lonely, especially when it's lonely. Keep speaking your truth even when it's unpopular. Keep seeing what you see, feeling what you feel, knowing what you know. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Don't play small to fit in. Don't abandon your truth for temporary belonging. The world desperately needs people who refuse to sleepwalk through life, who ask uncomfortable questions, who see through comfortable illusions, who remember that we're infinite consciousness having a temporary human experience rather than the other way around. And when you doubt, when the path feels too difficult, when the solitude feels too heavy, when you wonder if you're crazy or delusional or just making everything up, remember this. Every chosen one, every prophet, every mystic, every revolutionary, every consciousness pioneer throughout all of human history felt exactly the same doubts. The Buddha doubted under the Bodhi tree. Jesus doubted in the Garden of Gethsemane. Every hero doubts in the dark night before the dawn. Doubt doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Often it means you're exactly where you need to be, right at the threshold of breakthrough, at the edge of transformation, one step away from a completely new level of understanding. The world is talking about you because you represent possibility. You represent the road not taken, the life not settled for, the truth not compromised. Your existence is a challenge and an invitation. A challenge to the status quo, to comfortable mediocrity, to collective unconsciousness. An invitation to anyone ready to wake up, to anyone tired of performing, to anyone who feels that same different quality in themselves but hasn't yet had the courage to fully embrace it. You don't need to do anything dramatic to fulfill your purpose. You just need to be authentically you, and reality will organize around that authenticity in ways you cannot predict or control. So let them talk. Let the world create its narratives, its projections, its judgments and celebrations. You keep walking. You keep growing. You keep becoming more fully yourself with each step, each breath, each choice aligned with your deepest truth. This is a path of the chosen one. Not chosen by some external deity or cosmic lottery, but chosen by your own soul before you incarnated. Chosen by your willingness to wake up when staying asleep would be easier. Chosen by your commitment to truth in a world that often prefers comfortable lies. You chose this, and the world, whether it knows it or not, is grateful. The conversation continues, rippling out through reality, touching lives in ways you'll never fully know. And that's perfect. Your job isn't to know the impact. Your job is simply to keep being the impact. Walk on, chosen one. The world needs exactly what you carry.